Hey guys, and welcome back to and now for something a little bit different. I hope everybody is doing well out there. As you can tell, it's Thursday. You should get this later on this morning as I record this. I'm running a little bit behind, but here I am. And today, guys, I've got a pretty exciting episode. I'm going to be talking to you about a short film. It's a stop motion film, primarily. There are some regular animations sprinkled throughout in a couple scenes, but it's primarily a stop motion film from the Czech Republic, which came out in '86, and it's called The Pied Piper, based off the story. So this should be a very fun episode. I discovered this thing on Tubi, and it's pretty awesome to play my hand a little bit early. Um, but you can also, besides on Tubi, you can also find it through Deaf Crocodile Films. They're the same company that put out Fell Day, which I covered with Dave Gray a couple episodes ago. So definitely check that out for all my people that like physical media. I'm going to be picking up a copy myself, hopefully in the next couple weeks. Before I do that, I figured I would take this opportunity and just thank you guys again for your continued support. Things have been going really good here at the channel lately. I've had some really wonderful guests, and it's been a great experience. And you guys have been awesome. You guys have been watching the video. I've seen comments. I've heard compliments. This is great stuff, guys. Just the kind of stuff that motivates me. And I'm hoping to book some more awesome guests. So stay tuned for that. I'm just in the process of trying to find the guests, of course, and trying to figure out working with people's schedules and stuff like that. So that's some stuff I just wanted to get out of the way and just say, again, thank you guys for all your help and support. Um, Before I get into the actual movie, I figured I would talk about some stuff that I watched. Now, this week I didn't get a ton of stuff in, um, but I did get some interesting stuff in. I'll start with a TV show. Now, this is a TV show from 2019, and it's called Wayne. And Wayne is basically, hold on, got to look at my cheat sheet, of course, guys. It's about the titular character, Wayne, who's a 16-year-old living in Boston. And he's one of these kids that wears his heart on his sleeve. He doesn't take shit from anybody. And we are presented with the story premises. His father is unfortunately dying of cancer. So Wayne's trying to keep the household going. It's him and his dad. Um, his dad eventually, unfortunately, passes, but before his dad passes, he tells him of a Trans Am that he loved. And when his wife, Wayne's mother, left them, she took off to Florida and she took the Trans Am with him. And it was something that he always loved and cherished. So unfortunately, Wayne's father passes, and along the way, Wayne meets a teenage girl, also 16, character named Dell. And Dell lives with her father and her two twin idiot brothers. And her father's a guy that looks like he drinks too much, smokes too much, and it's not the best situation. They kind of bond and become friends. Uh, and then she joins him on this quest um, to Florida on this dirt bike, and they get into all sorts of adventures along the way. It's written by, hold on, guys, because I'm going to cheat a little bit. A guy named, hold on, where did I write it down? A guy named Sean Simmons. Now, Sean Simmons, besides creating this show, he also created the John Wick spinoff, that show, The Continental, which I still haven't seen yet. I've heard mixed things. I know it's on Peacock. Eventually, I'll get around to it. Um, he's a writer known for a ton of stuff, guys. If you're into animation, he did that show Mr. Pickles, which is very twisted. Um, he did this School of Rock TV show. He wrote some episodes for that. He did a TV series called Man Up. And then this year, he's making his directorial debut on a thriller called Eenie Meenie, which has people like Samara Weaving in it. Steve Zahn, Randall Park, and it looks very interesting. So I'm definitely going to be excited for that. Hopefully, it gets a wide release. That's going to be his directorial debut. Um, when I get into the actual cast, I'm only going to just focus on the main two actors. I mean, there are some really great supporting actors in this, but the main actors are the one character, Wayne, who's our lead character, and he's played by an actor named Mark McKenna. A couple things you guys might know Mark McKenna from. Um, his first film was actually the film Sing Street in 2016. Now, if that one rings a bell, you guys might be familiar with that. The director, I want to say his name is John Carney, possibly. He directed the movie once, Begin Again, and Sing Street. So Mark was in that. And then he was also in the horror film, which I absolutely adore, called Overlord, which came out in 2018. It's like a World War II Nazi zombie horror film. Really good stuff. Check that out. And then he's done stuff like more recently the film Small Things Like These in 2024. So that's a little bit about our man Mark McKenna. Um, he has about 16 credits. I just tried to pick a couple things that I thought people might be familiar with. Um, when I go into the other lead actor, we have the role of Dell playing his friend, possibly love interest, and that's played by a young actress named Sierra Bravo. Sierra Bravo's been in stuff like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. You remember that from the TV show? She was in Neighbors 2. She was in a film called Cherry in 2021. She has a whole list of credits, a bunch of stuff like animated stuff too, as well, doing like voiceover work. Um, these guys are both awesome, and definitely look out for both of them because I have a gut instinct that is telling me these guys are going to be stars, like huge stars. And if they're not, there's something very wrong with the world because they should be. They're both super talented. Um, the show's only about 10 episodes. I'm about I think I just finished episode 6 last night, and I'm loving it, guys. It's really good. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was originally a YouTube show, believe it or not, and then I think it shifted over to Amazon. Unfortunately, it got canceled after the first season, but you can find it on Tubi. So definitely check out Wayne. Wayne is really solid stuff. Um, that brings me to one of the films I saw in the theaters last week. And of course, being an animated fan, and of course, Animation Month, I had to go see The Day the Earth Blew Up, the new Looney Tunes movie. Now, this is great, guys. It's typical Looney Tunes. It's a fun time. It's a sci-fi premise. Basically, the Earth is threatened by an alien invasion, and who can save the day? None other than Porky Pig and Daffy Duck, the worst possible candidates to save the day, of course. In this, it's interesting because they start the movie off and they're babies and they're found by a farmer and they're raised together as brothers, and of course they grow up to become adults and slackers and don't do anything, and then all of a sudden they're put in a situation where they're forced to save the Earth. Um, it's directed by a guy named Peter Brongant. Hopefully, I got that right. Um, he's mostly known for writing, but he's done some directing stuff. Like I guess they had a recent Looney Tunes TV show um, that ran between 2020 and 2023. He directed 6 episodes of that, and he also directed a short that stars Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, called "The Curse of the The Curse of the Monkey Bird." Um, and like as far as writing goes, like I said, he's written like a ton of animated stuff. I didn't want to go into his whole writing resume, but it's on Internet Movie Database if you're curious. Um, the main actor, I'm going to just focus on the one actor. He voiced Daffy Duck and Porky Pig. Is a guy named Eric Bauza. Eric Bauza has been all over the place. Some of the credits you guys might be familiar with: Rick and Morty, Animaniacs, um, Solar Opposites, Bob's Burgers, and if you're a Trekkie, you've probably watched on Paramount Plus Star Trek Lower Decks. So he's done some really, really interesting stuff. He's one of these guys that's been working forever. Now, obviously, there are a bunch of other actors, but because this is just what I'm telling you what I watched, guys, I'm not going to go into the entire cast. That's definitely a fun movie, guys, and a great time at the theaters. Check that out. Give that movie some love. Uh, a more recent update, from what I understand, the company, which I didn't bother to look up, that I think is handling the distribution for that possibly, um, is negotiating with Warner Brothers to purchase the Acme versus Wile E. Coyote animated movie. Now, for those in the know, you guys probably know about this film. It was supposedly completely done in the can, ready to go, and Warner Brothers decided to basically shelf it in lieu of a tax credit, from what I understand. It's supposed to be really good. It screened for a bunch of people, and it got really solid reviews. So hopefully, if this company, same company, purchases that film, we'll get that out. So that's pretty exciting. And like I said, it's the same company, from what I understand. Um, so that's something to look forward to as well. Just figured I'd mention it. Which brings us to our film today. And like I said, technically is a short film, but it's like 55 minutes, guys. So it's just like I think technically, if you to be a feature film, I think they say you have to be like an hour, maybe an hour. I thought an hour and 10 or an hour and 20 minutes to be technically considered a feature film. But this is the Pied Piper of Hamelin, or uh, Pied Piper actually is what it's the title of the film, or the Czech Republic title is Kherson, if I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully, I didn't get it horribly wrong. Um, Before I get into the actual film, though, I do want to talk about a little bit about like the history. Um, so what's interesting, guys, is apparently it's not like actual historical facts, but the legend of the Pied Piper. It's based on a historical event. um, Now, of course, it was probably embellished over time, but basically, the way the story goes, in 1284 in Hamelin, Germany, a man with a pipe led a group of children away, and then if you now look from the historical perspective, the town of Hamelin in Germany, um, their records actually date back to 1384, um, and they do have a historical um, recording, I guess, uh, saying that's what happened. That a guy with a pipe led a bunch of children away, but they don't have like specific details. So I guess it's a little bit sketchy, but supposedly the idea somewhere there's some truth there, supposedly. So I think that's kind of interesting. Even if it's warped in whatever way, I think it's interesting. Later on, um, hold on one second, guys. I want to get to, just bear with me for a second, guys, here. Hold on. Bear with me, guys. I thought I had this written right here. Okay, here we go. So now what's interesting about this, guys, is that when we get to the writing department, so it was based off of a story. Um, it was first written as a poem by the writer Goethe in 1804. He published a poem. Then again, in 1845, the writer Robert Browning did a poem, The Pied Piper of Hamelin. And then the writer Victor Dyke, I want to hopefully I didn't get that completely wrong here. He wrote a novel that was published in 1915. Um, so this is basically loosely based, I think, on the novel, um, with a couple big changes, or in one big change, which I'll get into later on. So that gives you a little bit of a setup, um, about the actual history of it, and then a little bit about our writers. Um, it's directed by a guy named Jiří Bárta. And like I said, this comes from the Czech Republic. The film um, doesn't actually have, um, it has people speaking like a gibberish language, um, but it's mostly you're just watching the events unfold and these people talk in this weird gibberish language, but it's not an actual language. It's actually made up um, for the story in the film. Um, so I just figured I'd get that out of the way and tell you about that. It's directed by, like I said, a guy named Jiří Barta from the Czech Republic. He's mostly known for doing shorts. He's done stuff like a film called The Ballad of the Green Wood in '83, animated self-portraits in '89, Cartoon Noir, which came out in '99, and then he did do a feature, which is called Toys in the Attic, which came out in '09, and that's actually a feature. Believe it or not, you can find that on Peacock, and apparently it has an English cast as well, and you have people like Forrest Whitaker and a bunch of other people. And I hear it's pretty good. I didn't get a chance to squeeze that in, but I'm hoping to check that out over the weekend. So that's a little bit about his directing credits. Our director Jiří Barta, excuse me. um, I already went over our writers. When it comes to the acting department, guys, we have 4 actors total, and like I said, it's a this film is weird because when I looked up who was playing the parts, they don't tell you that. They just list 4 different actors. Um, and their names are Ulrich Kaiser, Jiri Labis, Mikhail Pavlasek, and Willem Kak. And again, I didn't bother to write anything on these guys' resumes because they're not even telling us which roles they took over. I'm assuming these 4 actors probably played multiple roles in the film, and maybe that's why they didn't list what actors they're associated with voicing. Like I said, they're all just doing gibberish anyway. It's this, like I said, this gibberish made up language. So at the end of the day, it really isn't overly relevant anyway. When we head into our music, we get a gentleman named Michael Kosab, and Michael has worked on stuff like Sweet Troubles in '85, The Wolf's Hole in '87, Night Angel in '87, and A Soul to Redeem in 2017. So that's a little bit about our composer. It's got a beautiful score, by the way. When we get to our editing department, we have Halina Labaduskakova. That's a mouthful, guys. um, she's done stuff like A Quiet Week in the House, which is a short film that came out in 1969. The Killing Fragrance, which also came out in 1969. The Spectre's Bride, which came out in '78. And The Ballad of the Green Wood, which came out in '83. Um, so that's a little bit about our editor. When we come to our cinematographer, we have a gentleman named Vladimir Milek. He was in the film The Helpers, which came out in '68. That's a short film. Bum, which came out in '79, also another short film. Night Angel, which came out in '87. And Dimensions of a Dialogue, which is also a short, which came out in '83. Um, Also, we have another cinematographer, Ivan Vit. Ivan Vit was in stuff like, or excuse me, did cinematography for films like Convertible, which came out in '92, Paving Bricks, which also came out in '92, Hiroshi, which came out in '05, and Toys in the Attic, which came out in 2009. So that's a little bit about our cinematography. When it comes to the animation department, this is interesting. This film only had 4 animators, guys. So this wasn't a huge production. So yeah, that talks a little bit about the people behind the scenes. Now I am going to get into the story a little bit. And when I say a little bit, I'm going to do a breakdown here, guys. Um, there are major spoilers, just to give you guys heads up. I'm going to get into the actual screenplay. The film opens up and we see a mechanism in the town. And as this is happening, the sun rises and uh, the day starts to unfold for the people of the town of Hamelin. The people go about their day, and you can tell just by watching the film and the people. Most of the people in the film are quite miserable. There's this hierarchy of peasants and nobles and the town leaders, and the peasants are treated like dirt, I guess, as a peasant might be, especially in that time period. We see that money is everything, and the social divide between those that have it and those don't seem very clear. It's you see, like I said, you see the people getting treated like crap. The people that are just doing the everyday stuff, taking care of the leaders and the officials and the rich people in town. We see the rich are being very wasteful. And in one particular scene, we see them feasting on food and drink, just throwing their scraps on the floor. And meanwhile, they're just chucking stuff on the floor. And we see the servants coming in, and they can't bring in food fast enough and wine fast enough. And they're treating them poorly. And like I said, just chucking stuff all over the place. Of course, all this waste leads to a huge rat issue because they're not really taking care of this town. They're just treating it like it's a scrap heap or a junkyard. And during the night, we start to see rats invade the town and wreak havoc. They're taking food, they're stealing stuff like jewelry. They're just being overall pests like rats will tend to do. The next day, the rats continue to show up. Usually it was at night. Now they're continuing their reign of terror, but during the daytime as well. While this is starting to become an issue, we see a hooded stranger, a musician, a piper to be more specific, appear in town. Um, he notes the trouble, and as the trouble continues to escalate and get worse, he approaches some town officials. These are the same people that causing the problem. The guys that were making a mess, throwing their stuff all over the place, treating people poorly. Um, he approaches the town officials and he pulls out his pipe and he plays a tune, and we start to see a couple rats already start to follow him. Um, Basically, from there, what ends up happening is he tells them, like, he doesn't in his own gibberish language, like, I can get rid of this problem. You're going to pay up. And the town leaders very hastily draw up this contract we see for 1,000 gold pieces, if he agrees to solve their problem. So we get this really amazing sequence, and we see our Piper, and he's marching through the town, and all these rats are following him, and they get to like this cliff effectively, and they all just jump into the water and drown. Um, so he agrees to do that, and like I said, he resolves the problem for them. Now, while this is happening, we see one of these town officials who's a jeweler, a very, again, everyone, all the rich people are they're really the villains in this film, guys. They're really evil. We see him approach a woman. And what's interesting about the woman in this film, um, is she is the one person in the film that actually looks like a normal person. All the other people in the film look like kind of deformed, and they look ugly, not to be rude, but they look ugly and gross. And I think the idea is by having her look normal and beautiful, it's to be like a thing of purity. It's to show off the idea that this woman is pure and she's good. And these greedy, selfish people are all hideously deformed and ugly because of their inner, um, the way they act towards people and the way they behave in general, their attitude towards life. So that's I thought was an interesting piece of imagery. So anyway, back to the story. Our jeweler, he's like I said, he's trying to seduce this woman, um, but you can tell that she's repulsed. I mean, he's trying to give her a necklace, and he tries to put this necklace on, and it basically scratches her throat. Um, Meanwhile, our piper happens to be walking by, and he sees this girl being harassed by this the jeweler, and he kind of looks at the guy, and the guy I guess, gets frightened, and he jumps out this window. Um, so uh, later that evening, after the piper has gotten rid of the rats, he goes to visit the woman, and he plays a music for her, a song just for her. And she puts his head on his shoulder, and you can kind of see like basically like a romance of sorts budding. They share a moment, and like I said, like I said, something that probably could lead to something more. So later, also that night, we get our piper, and he goes to the town officials to go get paid. Now, at this point, the town officials have not learned their lesson. They're back to their normal antics. They're throwing food on the ground and wine and treating the servants like shit, essentially. They haven't learned anything. But our piper doesn't care. He did his job. He just wants to get paid, Fair enough, right? So he approaches the town officials and um, he shows them the contract, and they just laugh at him. They empty out a purse of gold coins, and they pull out a black button and just throw it on the floor next to him. Now, he doesn't respond in any way at all. He just kind of like looks at them and walks away. And our leaders go back to feasting and drinking too much. One of these leaders, by the way, happens to be the jeweler, and he's basically, and even though it's gibberish, he's basically telling the other people that he went after this girl earlier, and she was repulsed by him, and he's basically saying he was cock blocked by, if you will, he was cock blocked by our Piper friend here, and he's complaining about it. He's not too happy. Um, Later that night, this is where things start to get dark. If it's not dark enough already for you guys, our jeweler friend goes back to the woman with some friends, and he's drunk as can be, and unfortunately, um, now this is all implied. It's not, we don't see it, but it's heavily implied that they come across her, she's praying, and while she's doing that, she's effectively raped and murdered. Um, Now, this is unfortunate because we have our Piper, who before he came to the rescue of her, this time he doesn't make it in time. He shows up, and he's in shock. She's dead, and obviously he's upset. At this point, we realize our Piper uh, has taken it too much. It's gone too far, so he decides to do something. He goes up to the highest tower in the town, and he plays his music. And he then goes to town, and he starts playing his little tune. And as he's doing that, the people in the town all start turning into rats. And as they're turning into rats, they all follow him. And just like the other set of rats, um, they follow him to the edge of town, and they fall off this cliff into the cold, icy waters, and their death. The last one, of course, is the jeweler, because he's represented as the most evil one in town. They're all kind of selfish, evil people. Um, and from there, um, we see an old man out on the water, just on the outskirts of town. He's on a boat and he's fishing. And I guess he sees all this unfold, and he goes back into town, and he goes to approach our Piper. And what's interesting is just as he approaches our Piper, his body like magically vanishes, and all we see is this cloak, which flies off into the wind. And of course, this old man is very astonished by this, not really sure what to make of it. But he figures he's already in town, so he might as well explore. So he explores the town, and we find one lone survivor, and that one lone survivor is a little baby. And I guess what we can make from this is this baby survived because it's innocent, whereas everyone else in town, um, let's face it, wasn't innocent. So yeah, and that's how the movie ends, guys. Like I said, it's 55 minutes. You can find it on Tubi. Definitely check it out. Like I said, it's also on the Deaf Crocodiles Films, their website. It used to be, I think they released this one in 2023. I couldn't find it on Amazon, but you can definitely find it on their main website. It's a solid film, guys. Do really, really beautiful stop motion animation. I mean, I'm always a fan of stop motion animation, but it's beautifully done. There's some really good themes going on. The main one, of course, is the morality tale of once you make a deal, don't go back on it. You know what I mean? Also, don't treat people like shit, and then don't expect if you treat people like shit not to have some sort of repercussions. Um, but it's dark, guys. It's really dark. Obviously, there some sad stuff. Um, and it's really effective. I mean, this is one of those things where, I've never read any of the poems or the novel. But obviously it's one of those folk tale kind of things where you obviously know the premise. And I think in the original story, if I'm not mistaken, I think for the most part, things play out the same, except as revenge, he ends up taking the town's kids and leading them out of town. I believe that's how the original the poems and the novel play out in the ending. I could be wrong on that, so correct me in the comments if I am. I probably am. I might possibly be wrong, but I don't think I'm pretty sure that's how the original story goes. But yeah, no, this thing is really good, guys. And normally I don't really like purchase short films just because I feel like it's a short film. Um, but from what I understand, the Deaf Crocodile release of this has like a ton of extra stuff. It might even have another short film by the director. Um, they always do a great job with commentaries and restorations and behind the scenes featurettes and all that extra stuff. So it's definitely one I'm going to probably pick up hopefully in the next couple months, just because I had such a really good experience. It's like I said, from a technical level, it's amazing. And then, like I said, just the themes and the story, it's very simple. But even though it's simple, it really works. So yeah, that's today's episode. It's a short episode to go along with a short film. Um, Now I have a couple things in the works, guys. Like I said earlier in the episode, I'm trying to line up guests for next month. I might have someone for next week, but I'm not 100% sure yet. So I don't want to make announcements on the next episode. I'm definitely going to have another episode though coming out next week. And if I can, I've been talking about it for a couple weeks now. I am going to try to find the time in the next 2 to 3 days to cover a graphic novel because I've been meaning to do that for a while. And as much as I love film, I do love talking about my comic books. Um, so that's some stuff to keep your eye out for. Again, thank you guys for watching. I love you guys. Please do me a favor, like the video. If you have something to say, you agree, disagree, leave a comment. Um, Hell, share it, guys. Help me get the word out there. And if you're ever interested in joining me for an episode, guys, feel free, reach out to me. Just reach out to me. You can reach out to me here on the comments. You can reach out to me, John Horgan 719 at gmail.com, or you can find me on Facebook. Um, and with that said, guys, I'm going to roll out a couple shout outs to podcasts that you guys should be listening to. I'll start off with um, Troy and Brad at the Not a Bomb podcast. Every week, these guys kill it, guys. They talk about films that were either a commercial failure or a critical failure. Last week, they did a double feature of Wrongfully Accused and Spy Hard, two Leslie Nielsen films that came out in the 90s. So check out Troy and Brad over at Not a Bomb. Of course, we have Will and Sam over at The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. Will and Sam, I've been doing it for years. I think they're up to like 700 episodes. These guys are the inspiration for a lot of podcasters. They always bring something interesting. So definitely check out Will and Sam over at The Gentleman's Guide to Midnight Cinema. Of course, we have Watch Skip Plus with my buddy Mike, the Wildebeest, and Jose, the Cupcake, the ultimate team, guys. These guys are doing great. They do the Lord's work, guys, because they're going to the movie theaters every weekend. Um, and they're covering all the new stuff that's coming out, or not all of it, but a film per week. And sometimes they give us bonus episodes, like they give us a Sundance episode or an Oscar episode. So Watch Skip Plus is amazing. Big fan of both those guys and the work they're doing. They're another podcast where they're just killing it. Of course, we have Caliber 9 from Outer Space with Rob and Joe. Rob and Joe, another great podcast. Rob and Joe do excellent work. They pick some really interesting films. Some of it's more obscure, some of it's more mainstream. They have a great format where they cover two films every week. It's almost like going to the drive-in. You get your A film and you get your B film. And if you guys watched, they were on here last week where we talked about A Wind Named Amnesia, um, and the film Wizards by Ralph Bakshi. So these guys are awesome. So check out Caliber 9 from Outer Space. I know they just did an episode last Friday that came out that had Demolition Man, and I can't remember the second film. I'm sorry, guys, but definitely one of the films was definitely Demolition Man. So check out Caliber 9 from Outer Space. Um, Also, I definitely have to put out a shout out to Raiders from the podcast. Raiders are awesome. You have Dave, and you have Kevin and Tyler and Craig, and these guys are another podcast where they do two films every episode, and they have a great format. They always pick interesting films, and then once a month they'll do a special episode where they'll talk about four films. So definitely check out Raiders of the podcast, show those guys some love, um, and check them out. And oh, one more podcast, guys, I promise, and this will be done. I got our friend Alex, who worked with Jose formerly on Watch Skip Plus. He has a YouTube channel called Friends with Cinefets. And Friends with Cinefets is a great little YouTube channel. I think it's bi-weekly. He invites someone to come on, and they talk about a film. Um, and it's a great little YouTube channel, so check it out. And Alex, reach out to me, buddy. I'd love to come on. Hint, hint. So yeah, check out all those podcasts, guys. Tell me what you think of the episode, and I hope you guys have yourself a great week.